There's unrest brewing within the Federal Fire Service as reports emerge of alleged illegal recruitment into critical mid-level positions. Concerned officers have raised red flags, claiming that due process has been ignored in favor of hand-picked outsiders. According to an open letter dated July 28, addressed to both the Minister of Interior and the Civil Defense, Immigration and Prisons Service Board, the Comptroller General is accusing, or rather being accused, of bypassing established protocols. The letter alleged that the ongoing recruitment into grade levels 10 to 14 violates the 2013 guidelines, which prohibit lateral transfers into paramilitary agencies like the fire service. The officers warn that bringing in inexperienced personnel could put public safety at risk.
In short, this is a matter of protocol, legality and safety. And it's one that's shaking the trust within one of the country's key emergency services. And so to walk us through this explosive report is Joshua Imarayi, our correspondent here at News Central, who has been following the story closely. Joshua, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us this morning. Joshua joins us live from the capital, Abuja. Joshua, let's start from the beginning. How did you come across the story and what tipped you off to the unrest within the fire service?
Well, thank you for having me this morning, Judith and Martindo. So this particular letter was circulated across several social media platforms. And what caught my attention was the fact that a few moments from that time, the Controller General of the Federal Fire Service, that's the person of Abdulganiyu Jaji, was supposed to retire. And in that particular letter, several allegations were made stating that that's Abdulganiyu Jaji was planning to plant stooges into several mid-level positions in the Federal Fire Service so as to have sway in their say. And one thing that was noted there was the fact that they were complaining that these positions that they are trying to recruit persons from external sources, they have qualified persons in-house to fill those positions. And doing that will compromise the integrity of the Federal Fire Service, which is known for its own tactical approach to recruiting personnel into the service. And what we know is that before one could be recruited into the Federal Fire Service, that person has to go through a series of trainings, screenings as well, to make that person fit for the Federal Fire Service. So when that letter came, there were more to it because we started making calls and we discovered that there seems to be an iota of truth in that particular letter. And one thing about civil service and the likes is that whenever there are issues like this, people don't like coming out singularly to state the fact. So they are always hiding under this anonymity to protect their own image.
Now, Joshua, that's very interesting. You talked about this tactical approach to recruiting, and I'm wondering how exactly the format is. What do they have to go through to be able to get to this level and be employed? Because it's a matter of risk at the end of the day. The fire service is supposed to be very well regulated. So what are they jumping? What protocols are they jumping?
When anybody is employed into the Federal Fire Service, that person has to apply, and they do that through their portal. And when the application is made, there are several levels to which the personnel can be recruited into the Federal Fire Service. And that is from the lower cadre, that is the constabulary, then maybe the inspector cadre, and then the cadet cadre. So what we are talking currently about is from the cadet cadre upwards to managerial position. So whenever this notice being made, people apply, and when they apply, they write written exams. And when those exams are passed, fortunately for those persons, they pass these exams, then they go forward to screening. From screening, they go for in-house training for a period of nothing less than 6 months. So recruiting someone into the Federal Fire Service as a personnel without that particular experience actually puts the Federal Fire Service names at risk, because in terms of technicalities, those people might fall short. In terms of meeting the know-how, they might also fall short. So this is how personnel are recruited into the fire service.
Now, Joshua, just to clarify, the person who tipped you off on this story, what's his fate?
Can you take that again?
I was asking about your tip, your source What's the latest with him or them?
That letter was written under the guise of concerned personnel of the Federal Fire Service. So nobody was named as to be the leader or perhaps the spokesperson for those disgruntled people within the Federal Fire Service. They were under the umbrella of concerned personnel. So one could not pinpoint that this particular person is writing this letter. But what we know is that something like that happened. But it will interest you to know that fortunately, that particular day that letter emanated, where I reported on that particular issue, the president took some decisive action and a new Controller General of the Federal Fire Service was appointed that particular day. So this is saying that events are overtaking the entire team, and we are seeing that Abdulganiyu Jaji is no longer the Controller General of the Federal Fire Service. A new person has been appointed by President Bola Tinubu as the Controller of the Federal Fire Service.
So what happens next? If you're saying there's a new Comptroller General in charge of the office, were you able to reach out to any of the authorities? Does this mean this is a dead end for your investigations?
The investigation still continues. We are still pursuing this because, of course, we expect that an in-house audit will be made to see if that is truly happening, and those who are responsible for this particular action. We are still following up on the issue. We are not letting it die, and we hope that we'll be giving answers as I went to.
Joshua, I am very concerned for Abdulganiyu Jaji. If you say that he has been removed as the Comptroller General, why was he removed? Was he removed because he was responsible for this letter getting out or these issues coming out? And it seems a bit punitive, like as if he was responsible, that he was being punished for that and somebody else appointed. This is just a theory. What do you think?
Well, we know that Abdulganiyu Jaji was supposed to retire anytime from that moment. So that when the letter came out, we saw this as a red flag because this is a normal practice from some corrupt individuals. We are not saying Abdulganiyu is corrupt, but we are saying that there have been allegations of this sort, saying that he wants to leave service and he's planning to bring in people to fill those positions. And we are still pursuing it to uncover the truth if something of such nature is truly happening. And if it is truly happening, then I think the law should take its course.
So it seems there are two ways to look at it. That if he's responsible for the situation that we find ourselves here now, when people are being employed arbitrarily, that something has been done by the authorities and he has been replaced. However, if he was responsible for actually whistleblowing, then something of the opposite kind might have happened. And that's what I'm trying to ascertain here, that which of these two possibilities might be the real possibility. I don't know if you get me.
I truly get you, but on that letter, hands were pointed at Abdulganiyu Jaji as the person responsible for that alleged action. But it is unclear if he actually did that. But we know that something of such nature was being alleged by some concerned personnel of the Federal Fire Service. They were pointing hands at him. Why? Because according to the letter, they said he was going to retire at any moment from that time, and that this was another attempt to bring in people to fill those positions as he leaves. But that particular day, the presidency came out with a notice saying that a person has been appointed. We don't know for sure if that action was as a result of the appointment, or perhaps there seems to be a restructuring going on in-house within the Federal Fire Service. We don't know for sure. But what we know is that hands were pointing at Abdulganiyu Jaji as the alleged person in this case.
Or perhaps maybe they were just putting in place the structure for when he actually does retire, since that is close.
As we're talking about, just the fire service, you have visited the offices. I'm wondering, what was the mood like, the atmosphere like there, especially now with the new appointee or a new Comptroller General?
Of course, the appointment of the new Comptroller General was celebrated amongst personnel and officers alike. Well, one thing about this office is they don't come out openly to rejoice when something of this sort happens, of this nature happens. They don't come out to rejoice openly. That is just the nature of civil service. They don't come out to rejoice on these actions openly. But we know that some parties seems to be happy. Of course, there will be disgruntled parties at the appointment, concerning the appointment of the new Comptroller General. But we know that. But what we know is that the Federal Fire Service has welcomed the appointment of the new Comptroller General with open hands and open hearts.
Well, Joshua, and what's the next step for you on this report, on this case? I fear that you saying it, they might be watching, but don't give away everything.
Well, the next step is to pursue this, to see the truth hearing, to see what is the crux of the issue. If such person was responsible for this action, we should know. But one thing that is common within civil service and the likes is that they withhold information. They don't like giving information. Why? Because maybe there's this fear of the powers that be or whatever. But what we know is that we are going to pursue this to the latter to see the root of this issue and to address it accordingly.
I want to say thank you very much, Joshua Imarayi, for bringing us this detail here, and we hope that it continues to unfold and that we don't see these kinds of racketeering happening inside of our agencies. Thank you very much, Joshua. Let's let you have your Sunday morning. Thank you for always being at hand to join us on Breakfast Extra.